Humanae Vitae is one big gaslight. On the one hand, NFP is natural, okay? Therefore, decrease, don't multiply is nature. But artificial contraception is unnatural. And it's also decrease, don't multiply. So, feeling gaslit yet? Wait till the end of this video. You will never see Humanae Vitae the same way again. I'm John Farrell. This is Annulment Proof, the only place on YouTube where marriage gets defined.
No matter how you spin it, there is nothing natural about Catholic birth control.
Well, you know, that is the theme of a lot of stuff at Vatican II. They just keep putting more love onto things, creating a new law, which is basically lawlessness. Okay, and if you look at Lucy in the back there, she is taking that into account. She's like, it's my right because I have a right to what's good. Therefore, this is what I've judged. Here, let's take a break on Ringo Scott for a second. Listen, this is it. We're in for the long haul. This is another for the record video from me about, it's all about Humanae Vitae, like the last in our series, I guess. I was reading Mulieris Dignitatem today. Actually, I might have to do a video about that. But Humanae Vitae is sort of the top of the heap here as far as the crazy marriage definition put into practice. So let's get right into it. Let's just click on it here. Hang on. And give us a little side to side. All right. Maybe I'll go smaller here for just a second like I normally do, and then we'll branch out. But here, let's go to the top. We're going to go through this thing. I was reading this, and I was thinking, this is amazing what I'm getting into. I can't believe it when you take it slow, when you just look at it. Here, I like this better. When you just look at it, each little thing, you start realizing that this is nuts, what they're telling us. But enough of my opinion. Let's get through this. So why do I say gaslighting? Well, I looked up a little bit what gaslighting is, and it says interactions that leave you feel ashamed. I don't know about that so much. I mean, some people feel guilty about their NFP or whatever, like, aren't we supposed to be having kids or, you know. So what's going on here? Let me make this big. Yeah, we'll make it bigger just because. All right, then convincingly telling us obvious lies. Most people know that there's trying to not have kids is obviously not increasing and multiplying, but, you know, they just keep getting into it. And they keep going with the NFP, like, what's up? Making you question reality. There's a good one right there. There's, like I said, people trying to figure out what is the natural purpose of marriage. And it seems to have gone away if procreation is not that natural purpose. Okay, that's enough of gaslighting. Let's go to the next. Let's go to the rest of Humanae Vitae here. All right. P.S. This is the opening line, this is where NFP got its birth. I'll tell you right now, and it was at 1951 Midwives, Pius XII. This statement is the whole hinge that NFP turns on right here. To embrace the matrimonial state, to use continually the faculty proper to such a state and lawful only therein, and at the same time to avoid its primary duty without a grave reason would be a sin against the very nature of married life. Pius XII, Midwives, 1951. Okay, so he's saying if you are using the conjugal act regularly, it is a sin against nature if you're trying to avoid babies. That's what he's saying. Okay, so it's a sin against nature. You can never sin against nature no matter what, ever. There are no circumstances which allow a sin against nature. It doesn't matter how just you think you are. None of that. You cannot violate nature. You cannot sin against nature, no matter how serious you think it is, okay? However, what happened somewhere along the line, and it was put into writing in 1951 by a Catholic, was they decided to call increase and multiply a duty. Right there. That's it. That's where we got our problem started. It's not nature, it's a duty. Therefore, we can decouple the procreative act, the conjugal act, from nature and we're going to call it duty. Like, you have a duty to go to Mass on Sunday. It's not a natural thing. It's a justice thing. So we're going to base marriage we're going to base the conjugal act not in nature, or we're not going to root marriage in nature, but in duty, okay? There is always exceptions to duty. Therefore, there's always exceptions to marriage permanence and all that stuff, a.k.a. the easy annulment. Now, okay, so he did two things. He called it a duty, and therefore you can sin against nature for grave reason. That's how they broke open the dam. They said it's a duty. Therefore, if you have grave reason, you don't have to do your duty. Like if you don't have to go to Mass on Sunday if you're having a 5-way bypass or, whatever's going on. You don't have to go to Mass for a grave reason. So you don't have to have babies for a grave reason. But wait a minute, I thought it was natural. No. So this is the crazy thing. He's going, marriage is based in duty, but it's based in nature at the same time, so you can violate it. Woohoo! No. That's bananas, okay? So this is where Humanae Vitae comes in to clean up the mess. Let us continue. We'll talk about Christopher West in a minute. Remind me of that, okay? Haha. Let's go to Humanae Vitae right here. All right. This is I'm telling you, there's some amazing stuff we're going to go through. I'm going to point some things out you've never heard. I can't see why that wouldn't be true. All right. The transmission of a human life this is where he starts, is a duty right there. There it is. Okay. This got going from, like I said, Pius XII in the beginning. So there it is. It's the transmission of human life as a duty. Now I'm going to make myself a little bigger here, and then I'm going to put all this in the show notes so you can see everything I'm looking at. So if you're just hanging out listening and, whatever. All right. Obviously, increase and multiply is not a duty. It shouldn't say that's obvious. Nowadays, people don't know that. No. It's just nature. It's a state of nature. And why do I say that? Because right here in the Douay Rheims commentary on increase and multiply, this is not a precept, aka duty, as some Protestant controvertists would have it, but a blessing rendered them fruitful, for God had said the same words to the fishes and the birds, who are incapable of receiving a precept. Okay? That means, I think it's pretty obvious, increase and multiply is a state of nature. What happens with the conjugal act, it has nothing to do with duty. It just is what it is. Okay? You can't adjust that, play with that, mess with that. Don't do that. I read, speaking of dignitatis, mulierum dignitatis, there's some amazing stuff in there, but I'll get to that in a minute. Okay. Now then, let's go to 2. The changes that have taken place they're talking about changes. The world is changing, dude, in the 60s, groovy. In the first place, there is a rapid increase in population. Yeah, right. Okay. Everyone kind of knows that's not the case, but they're trying to appeal to the politics, right? Everyone's like, wow, we got major problems. What are we going to do? This is all where the gaslight starts in Humanae Vitae. It's a duty, and then we have all these problems. What are we going to do? NFP to the rescue. All right. Okay, there is also, there is also the fact that not only working in housing conditions, but greater demands made both in the economic and educational field pose a living situation which is frequently difficult these days to provide properly for a large family. Who cares? If marriage is, if the conjugal act is if baby making is just a duty, then maybe that does. But if it's nature, it doesn't matter. Hey, things have been hard for a few centuries now, forever. What was it ever easy? Okay. While we're on this topic, here is my quote I got from the Douay Rheims, Genesis 3:16. This is pretty cool. To the woman, he said, I will multiply thy sorrows and thy conceptions. Okay, let's go over that. Look, he says to the woman, I will multiply thy conceptions. Don't go around trying to not multiply your conceptions. Don't mess with that. If you're going to do the conjugal act, you're going to get conceptions. God says he will multiply them. You don't tell God what he's going to multiply. Don't do that. That's what Onan did. So this, by the way, this is the only Bible translation that says this, Douay Rheims. Timothy Gordon doesn't use the Douay Rheims. That's how you get into trouble. And also Humanae Vitae, Humanae Vitae abandoned the Douay Rheims, and they got into trouble, which we'll get to later. But God said he's going to multiply your conceptions. And sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thou shalt be under thy husband's power. Not this, your desire will be for your husband. This is the only version that says it this way. You'll be under your husband's power, and he will have dominion over you. So it's really like super clear. Okay, you've got to use the Douay Rheims in anything that's even remotely controversial. That's where you get the real Bible, is the Douay. That's it. Okay, so this is why no one can mess with increase and multiply. You can't tweak it. You can't chew it around the edges. None of that, because this is God's department. God's going to multiply your conceptions. Okay? Yeah. Also noteworthy is a new understanding of the dignity of women. Really? Okay, so why is that noteworthy if someone knew? It doesn't have anything to do with nature. The new understanding of the dignity of women. The dignity of women is identical to the way it's always been, just like the dignity of man. Okay? There's no new understanding. Women have a lower dignity because they were the second in creation, but the first to sin. That's like Cornelius a Lapide, Thomas Aquinas, all that. This is what it is. They have an unequal dignity. They're not less people or anything. They're just, a king is different than a queen, is different than a duke, a jack, whatever. And replaces blah, blah, blah. And the relationship of the conjugal... Okay, wait a minute. Also noteworthy is a new understanding, blah, 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 of the value of conjugal love in marriage and the relationship of conjugal acts to this love. Wow, we have a new understanding. It doesn't matter about your new understanding, okay? 2 + 2 is 4. It doesn't matter what your new understanding is, all right? Marriage is between a man and a woman, no matter what your new understanding is. The primary purpose is procreation, no matter what your new understanding is. It doesn't matter about this relationship, conjugal acts to love business. Sorry. And they got that from Gaudium 48. Okay? Love is it's a love contract. That's where it comes from. Gaudium et spes, new understanding, my booty. All right. Let's fast forward a little bit. Here we go. Let's read number 3, part of number 3. A further question is whether, because people are more conscious today, everybody get conscious today, of their responsibilities, the time has not come when the transmission of life should be regulated by their intelligence and will, rather than through specific rhythms of their own bodies. Okay, whatever. Hang on, I don't even know what I'm going to say to that. Hang on, let me see what I put in the notes. The generative power as such is not subordinated to the individual. This is what a liberal Jesuit, okay, but I repeat myself, as Michael Knowles would say, said back in 1956. The generative power as such is not subordinated to the individual. Hence, the principle of totality cannot be used to justify direct sterilization or any similar procedure. All right, I'm going to push pause and get up to speed on what I'm actually talking about. Hold on. Okay, now I remember. Listen, so Humane Vitae is saying, shouldn't we talk about, using our intelligence and will to regulate procreation? And even back in 56, Ford and Kelly were two Jesuits. I think Ford was too. But anyway, they were kind of liberal for their time. But even he admits the generative power, so increase and multiply as such, is not subordinated to the individual. Okay? So you don't get to kind of pick and choose on how that works. That's the point they're making. All right. Moving on. Number 4. A new okay, check this. So we're getting into new and groovy, okay, which is one thing that St. Pius X and Pascendi said, don't, anything that says new, run the other way. A new and deeper reflection on the principles of the moral teaching on marriage. Whoa, a new and deeper reflection. That sounds so cool. A teaching which is based on the natural law as illumined and enriched by divine revelation. What? Okay, wait. A new and deeper reflection of the principles of the moral teaching on marriage is a teaching which is based on natural law. Okay, so we didn't know what natural law was, but we have a new and deeper reflection now. So this is where the gaslighting comes in. Look, you idiot. I shouldn't say that. What I'm saying is they're going, hey, we've got a new understanding and it's extra special. So this is how we're going to make this work. And by golly, I'm the Pope and this is what's up. Keep going. All right. In carrying out this mandate, I guess the mandate for whatever. Listen, in carrying out this mandate, the church has always issued appropriate documents on the nature of marriage, the correct use of conjugal rights, and the duties of spouses. These documents have been more copious in recent times. Yeah, all right, listen. Today, there are no conjugal rights and there are no duties of spouses because the gift of self has no legal definition. So if you go to the new definition of marriage, it just says hang on, I'm going to look at it real quick. Yes, the new code of canon law says marriage is the consent to mutually give and accept each other. That's what it is. So the gift of yourself, a giving yourself, has no legal definition. Give me yourself, okay? What is that? You don't know. It cannot be put in a box or legally defined. Therefore, you cannot define the correct use of conjugal rights or the duties of spouses. It doesn't exist, and canon law even admits that in their commentary. But this is why people are bailing on marriage, because it's like, here, buy this piece of property. It has no property lines. The property lines are how you feel inside. How much will you pay me? That's all what's going on. Yeah, here it is, page 1357 of the new commentary. It is impossible to make a complete listing of the rights and obligations that other spouses have toward one another. Duh, because you can't make a list of infinite rights, okay? Total gift of self, that means to infinity and beyond, everything. What is everything? You can't do it. What is your complete self? What is your complete mind and your complete heart? How much? I hope I'm not popping my peas too much. All right, here we go. Okay. Oh, here, this is cool. Now, why are we even talking about I shouldn't say this. The purpose Humanae Vitae got started, a lot of it was the Birth Control Commission, from 1963. The consciousness of the same responsibility induced us to confirm and expand the commission set up by our predecessor, John XXIII, of happy memory, in 63. This commission was to examine views and opinions. So we got to examine the views and opinions of married life. Why would we have a commission to examine views and opinions? Because love is going to be the new definition of marriage. So we need some views and opinions, like we need synodality. I think this is the original synodal move right here. The Birth Control Commission. Let's get together in a great big circle and share. And especially on the correct regulation of births. Boy, we need to we need views and opinions about the correct regulation of births, because we're not really sure, and we got to find this out. And the reason why we're not really sure is because frickin' 1951, Pius XII said it's natural, marriage is natural, but you can violate that nature if you have a grave cause. Whoopsie. Oh, that doesn't make sense. Haha. What are we going to do? We're going to have to create a new nature. That's what we're going to do. How are we going to do that? Synodality, baby. All right. Regulation of birth. And it was to provide teaching authority in manner. And it was also to provide the teaching authority of the church with such evidence as it would be able to give an apt reply for this matter, which not only the faithful, but also the rest of the world were waiting for. Really? The church needed evidence to enable it to give an apt reply to the spacing of births. We just need to go on a listening tour. Started in 63. Holy cow. And that's because we're saying you can violate nature for grave cause. That's our problem. How are we going to solve that problem? Well, we can't take people's NFP away now. They're going to kill us. So what are we going to do? We're going to say it's not really violating nature, and we're going to do that through a whole bunch of people's opinions. All right? Anyway, let's see, just FYI, the Birth Control Commission, let me read this real quick. Here, I'll click it up big a little bit. The Birth Control Commission, 1966. According to this majority report, the use of contraceptives should be regarded as an extension of the already accepted cycle method. Duh, okay? Look, if NFP, then AFP. That's what I always say. It's true. That's what they're saying, the obvious. Yeah. The acceptance of a lawful application of the calculated sterile periods of the woman, NFP, that the application is legitimate, presupposes right motives, makes a separation between the sexual act, which is explicitly intended, and its reproductive effect, which is intentionally excluded. I'm going to push pause and digest that so I can explain it better. Hang on. Okay, so in a fancy way, they're basically saying, you know, if NFP, then AFP. They're like, look, if it's legitimate and it presumes right motives, if you can separate the conjugal act, which is intended for reproduction, and then you can make it effective, the effect is intentionally excluded. So therefore, if you can exclude the effect, that's legitimate. Doesn't matter how you get there, is the point. And they're correct. It's like stupid. That's why everyone knows it's Catholic birth control. It's Catholic, you know, that's it. All right. Now, then, so number 6 here on Humane Vitae, they got into talking about just what we're talking about. And it says, blah, 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 the moral norms to be proposed, and especially because certain approaches and criteria for a solution to this question, as in we didn't have the solution before, has emerged, which we were at variance with the moral doctrine on marriage, constantly taught by the magisterium of the church. What? Hang on a sec. Okay, basically, yeah, they were saying, look, these guys okayed contraception, so we can't do that. So they go, they're at variance, but we can't. Look, the church teaches contraception is wrong, therefore we got to put our thumbs down on this conclusion. Why they had the Birth Control Commission in the first place is just completely dumb. But again, when you open up the idea that for grave cause you can decrease, not multiply, then you got a problem. So this is why they're trying to solve it. That's why that's all synodality is. We're just going to make everyone's lived experience the new doctrine. It's golly. Okay. Consequently, now that we have sifted carefully the evidence, woohoo! They sifted the evidence. All the piles of paper and all the people who got together in a great big circle to share, they sifted the evidence. Wow. Sent to us, intendedly studied the whole matter, as well as prayed constantly to God. So they pray just like the Mormons pray before their abortion to make sure it's cool and meet with their pastor. Dude, they sifted through the birth control evidence and they prayed about it a lot. We, by virtue of this mandate entrusted to us by Christ, intend to give our reply to this series of grave questions. Oh, brother. Yeah. Man, so they're just like legitimizing synodality. Sorry about that. All right, number 7. The question of human procreation involves more than biology. Did you get that? Human procreation involves more than biology. It is the whole man which must be considered. That's number 7 in Humanae Vitae. So you thought babies just came from nature. Boy, were you wrong. This is how we're going to solve our problem of contraception violates nature. Okay? We're going to say that nature is more than just biology, or excuse me, yeah, the procreation is more than biology. That's how we're going to do it. The reason why that can't fly is because marriage is bound by nature. Marriage is nature. A natural marriage is a valid marriage. Okay, you cannot make nature more than it is. It just is what it is. That's why the contract is the right over the body for acts in and of themselves suitable for the generation of children, which means independent, okay, of anything else. So the old code said marriage was independent. It was biology independent of everything else. And they're saying, no, it's biology dependent on other stuff, like the gift of self, the whole self. That's why we're having huge trouble. The essence of marriage is effectively redefined, more than biology. That I could hear Boston singing that song, more than biology. That would be really funny. Okay, aspects of its, okay, both in its natural earthly aspects and its supernatural eternal aspects. Okay, it's the whole man must be considered, both in its natural earthly aspects and in its supernatural eternal aspects. No, because marriage is nature, baby. All right, so if we're considering supernatural and eternal aspects to the legal definition of marriage, we're hosed. It's no longer nature. It's supernature. Enter Christopher West divinizing everything. Okay, here we go. This is what we mean to do, with special reference to what the Second Vatican Council taught with its highest authority in its pastoral constitution on the church in the world today, a.k.a. Gaudium et Spes, the crazy dog. That's what it is. And they had some really happening people working on Gaudium. What did I write here? Lumen Gentium explicitly states that the documents of Vatican II are not binding unless explicitly stated. Yep, even Timothy Flanders knows that, meaning of Catholic. It's all of Vatican II. There's nothing new. We never said Simon Says. It's not binding. We did Vatican II, but there's nothing new binding in it. No. So all this Gaudium et Spes stuff, none of it's binding because it's obvious it's contradictory. We're saying nature is a whole bunch of other stuff that's not nature. No. Sorry. No. Number 8, married love particularly reveals its true nature. Does it now? Married love reveals its true nature. What is married love and what is the nature of married love? And is the legal definition of marriage dependent on the nature of married love? Who the heck knows? That's why you can't give the definition of marriage with rights and duties, because the true nature of marriage is love. Nowadays, anyway. Marriage whose purpose was to effect in man his loving... Wait, hang on a second. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, God, the creator of marriage, purpose was to effect in man his loving design. As a consequence, husband and wife, through that mutual gift of themselves, there we go again, which is specific. No, it's not specific. A mutual gift of themselves is not specific. What does that mean? Give me yourself. I am. No, you're not. Yes, I am. Look at... just like Lucy and Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown's like, give me yourself. And Lucy's like, you're not giving me yourself. It's my right. My good. You're not giving me all your good, Charlie Brown, so I'm taking the football away. My decision, my subjective decision. Who are you to judge? You know, that's why people aren't doing marriage. Whoop. Hold on. Anyway, as a consequence, husband and wife, through that mutual gift of themselves, which is specific, no, it's not, and exclusive to them alone, the mutual gift, no, develop that union. All union is a contract. You have a conjugal union, you have a painter's union, you have a workers' union, you have all kinds of unions, okay? But conjugal union means a contract. A marital contract. That's all that union is. So you don't develop a contract. A contract is what it is. There is no developing that union. This is where this wordsmithing, slippery stuff goes in. People are like, wow, we need to develop our union. That sounds so great. Let's develop our union. It's like, let's develop the $5 you owe me. Make it 50. I think we need some more development. Oh, yeah. And someone says, I'm going to develop it to 0. Cool, right? Who are you to judge? Anyway, the two persons which, okay, blah, blah, exclusive to them alone, develop that union of two persons which they perfect one another, cooperating with God in the generation and rearing of children. Translation, procreation is secondary, okay? It's the development of the union of two persons and the perfection thereof is the new primary, a.k.a. the personalist norm, all right? This is how we make sense of the 1951 statement. We say that nature is the perfection of one another and the developing of the union of two persons, whatever that means. Therefore, the generation of children should come from that. But if you got bad stuff going on, you don't need to generate the children, but you do need to, because in this way we will continue to develop our union of the two persons in perfection. So we've taken procreation and made it secondary. That's why you can bail on it for hard reasons, because it's no longer primary. It's no longer nature. It's just something that happens secondarily, okay? Because the nature is really the union, whatever. That's what they're trying to do. Let's keep going. The marriage of those who have been baptized, in addition, and invested with the dignity and sacrament of the sign of grace, for it represents that union of Christ and his church. All right, marriage of those who have been baptized is a sign of the union of Christ and his church. So if you haven't been baptized, it's not a sign. Therefore, natural marriage doesn't, this signs don't define nature. Signs don't define law. It can signify all sorts of things, but that's not the law. So this union of Christ and his church is not the union of spouses, like they've got to have this total gift, like the Trinitarian love, Christopher West, he's got no. That is a sign, a significance, but it is not nature. So you don't have to have a union with your spouse like Christ has a union with his church. There's no such thing as that. No, you just have to be able to make babies with biology. Number 9, married love. In the light of these facts, okay, so let the gaslight continue. Now that we've softened up your brain a little bit with our meat tenderizer, now you've got some new facts, bro. The characteristic features and exigencies of married love are clearly indicated. Really? The features and exigencies? I don't even know what exigencies means, but it sounds good. Okay. This love is above all fully human, not partially human. You need a fully human love. Which one of you isn't doing your love fully human? Raise your hand. Who could that be? A compound. Oh, a compound. Not a contract, not a compact, but a compound of sense and spirit. Woo! Okay, so you got to have fully human love for a valid marriage. You got to have fully human love for a illicit conjugal act. It's a compound of sense and spirit. If it is not, then merely a question of natural instinct and emotional drive. It is also above all an act of free will, blah, blah. Okay, hang on. Okay. Sorrows of daily life, but also to grow so that husband and wife become in a way one heart and one soul, and together attain their human fulfillment. Doesn't that sound nice? So they're supposed to compound their sense and spirit, and their wife is to become, in a way, one heart and one soul. So they're saying that this is the legal definition of marriage. You've got to, in a way, become one heart and one soul. So Charlie Brown here is like, hey, I'm coming to kick that football. We're going to be one heart and one soul, right? And she's like, no. This is not, I'm not doing this. We're not, homie, don't play that. So I've decided that my right is that you don't have my good in mind. So I'm pulling my right away. That's my right to do that. I guess I'm using signs here. Oh, so 1 Corinthians 7:29 says, they also who have wives be as if they had none. Therefore, you're supposed to be independent in a way. It's kind of like, yeah, if God says, you want me, you have to hate your mother. It's like God's first, not family. Not even husbands or wives are not first. So you have to operate independent. In other words, it's not like your spouse is your end-all, be-all. You should operate as though you have no wife. Keep the proper perspective, in other words. That's not necessarily human fulfillment to get one heart and one soul. Of course, you want charity. If you up your charity to the max, that's good. That helps you to keep the jerk mode down. But yes, you must love. It is a love which is total. Did you hear that? Marriage is a love which is total. Okay, 99.9% ain't gonna cut it. You need total love. That very special form of personal friendship, in which husband and wife generously share everything. This sounds so good. Wow, where can I get this? You can get it through Humanae Vitae. Listen to what they have in store for you. Personal friendship, in which husband and wife generously share everything, allowing no unreasonable exceptions and not thinking solely of their own convenience. Okay, I have a headache tonight. That's what they're talking about. Whatever. And allowing no unreasonable exceptions. Whoever really loves his, quote, partner loves not only for what he received, but loves that partner for the partner's own sake. Content to be able to enrich the other with the gift of himself. All right. Fine. Yeah. Nothing. It's like super love. That's pretty groovy. However, that's not in the contract. The contract is just the right to the debt. You don't have to have the right to this total first personal friendship, because Lucy is saying, hey, Charlie Brown, all you want is my football. You just want to kick the football. I have a right to a total personal friendship. And so therefore, you're coming to kick the football. That's not total, bro. You need to consider me. And you're not doing it. So I have a right to take this football away because you aren't being total. There's no more marital debt. Doesn't exist anymore after Vatican II. I mean, it does. It's just not among the spirit of Vatican II. Okay, continuing. Married love is also faithful and... Wait a minute. I have to check into this. I accidentally erased part of it. Okay, I just figured out what it said. I had accidentally cut it out. Married love is also faithful and exclusive. No, married love is not. The marriage is, but married love. See, this is where this subtle gaslighting stuff. Man, married love. What are they talking about? It's so subtle. That's why you read this stuff. You're like, wow, Humanae Vitae. It's so. What's the word? Forward thinking, and it's so. I can't think of that word right now. Sorry. Anyway, listen. It's not married love, dude. Marriage is faithful and exclusive. That means faithful and exclusive. Wait a minute. Of all other until this. And this until death. Marriage is exclusive, but faithful and exclusive are the same dang thing. And so they're confusing things, because married love is faithful and exclusive. This is a way to say that faith is more than simply not having an affair. Faith is more than simply not cheating. No, it's not. It's all it is. Faithfulness means no other person. Super simple. Procreation, exclusivity, permanence. Those are your three goods. Three goods. That's it. So they have to put a fourth good. There is no way you can have legal NFP without adding a fourth good to the three bona of exclusivity, permanence, children. You have to have a fourth good or it won't work. This is where the word total comes in. You've heard Christopher West say love and marriage must be faithful, free, total, and permanent, whatever. Yeah, there's your weasel word right there. Okay. Till death. This is now husband and wife. This is how husband and wife understood it on the day which, fully aware of they were doing, they freely vowed themselves to another. They didn't vow themselves. They vowed their body to the other. Just the body. That's it. That's the object of consent. The matter of the sacrament is the body, the contract over the body. That's the matter. You have to have the matter. It's not yourself. You can't, the self is not matter. All right. Through this fidelity of husband and wife sometimes presents difficulties. Wait a second. It says, though, here, let me fix this. Yeah. Though this fidelity, see how they did that? They snuck in an extra definition of marriage. Married love is faithful. Sometimes this faithfulness presents difficulties. Oh, really? Like, I want to have an affair? No, they're saying faithfulness is more than just no cheating. It is this total heartfelt mega love something or other. Let's go on and see what it says, because it says fidelity sometimes prevents difficulties. No one has the right to assert that it is impossible. It is, on the contrary, always honorable and marital. Example of countless married couples prove that not only fidelity in accord with the nature of marriage, but also the source of profound enduring. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Fidelity never presents difficulties. Just don't cheat. That's all it is. It's not a difficulty. It's what you do. It's like, exclusivity, permanence. Permanence sometimes presents difficulties. Do we say that? It's like, it's what it is, man. Okay. Canon 1081 of the 1917 Code. Matrimonial consent is an act of the will by which each party gives and accepts a perpetual and exclusive right over the body for acts which are of themselves suitable for the generation of children. Of just the body, just biology, acts which are of themselves. That means independent of all this other stuff. Did you hear that? Independent. Cardinal Burke, when you say procreation is primary, that means it's independent. You have to primary means independent. We don't say that today. We say primary means dependent because we've got to have our NFP. Therefore, all this love stuff must be dependent as well. Excuse me, all this procreation must be dependent on love. Love number one. Love wins. That's the new problem. Finally, this love is fecund? No. Finally, the contract includes procreation. But as they said, they say it to you in a nice gaslighty sort of way. And who the heck are you to judge? How are you going to know? You're just looking for love. And this is the church saying this love is fecund. Woohoo! It is not confined wholly to the loving interchange of husband and wife. It also contrives to go beyond this and bring forth new. Oh, brother. Listen to this crazy language. This is all Gaudium et Spes. These are the freaking weirdos that made it. Oh, it is all the Nouveaux Theologie people, coming up with this. They've blown nature apart to be able to make NFP, and once you get NFP, you get gay marriage too. I think it was said like early on, the 50s or something. Even before that, you start allowing contraception, you get gay marriage. That was predicted way back. It's just logical. Okay, so love is fecund. It is not love is not confined wholly to the loving interchange of husband and wife. Oh, brother, see, they're saying that the conjugal act is, if it's just about love, you're fine. It contrives to go beyond this to bring forth new life into being. So let's continue. Marriage and conjugal love are by their nature ordained toward procreation. Whoopsie, hold on. Marriage and conjugal love are, this is a problem, big problem. Marriage and conjugal love are by their nature ordained toward procreation. Okay, when they say ordained toward, that means ordered, right? But they used little tricky language. Marriage is ordered toward the procreation and education of children. This is what they're saying. But they're also saying love is ordered. by its nature. Love is natural, okay? Love is ordered toward the procreation and education of children. So we have two purposes of marriage. We have two primary purposes. We have two dependent purposes, the contract and love. By their nature are oriented toward procreation. Okay. And then they say children are really the supreme gift. Whoopee-doo. That used to fool me, but it doesn't fool me anymore. Yeah. Okay, you can say that it's the supreme gift, but that doesn't mean that what they're saying is it's secondary to love. Love is what you have to have. If you get the supreme gift, good for you. Number 10, responsible parenthood. Boy, oh boy. Married love, therefore, requires the husband and wife their full awareness and their obligations in the matter of responsible parenthood. Whatever. There's no such thing as, quote, married love. You have a marriage contract, but they're calling it married love. They just go on and on. One thing about gaslighting or gaslighters who do this to you, they beat you early and often. You get hit in the head many times with this message to the point where you start to doubt your own concept of reality. They're like, yes, marriage is love. Ah! And just like, you know, those pictures of all the people watching CNN, those little gray heads, and they're like, orange man, bad, whatever. All the Catholics are like, love is number one. Love's number one. Love and procreation are inseparable. This is how they all got gaslit. This is why NFP is like trying to work against NFP is like pushing a rock uphill with all these people. They can't think. They're not thinking, dude. Once you get involved in the NFP crazy, you're kind of sunk. It's weird. Talk to Chris. That's why Christopher West can't. He just blocks me. He blocks me on YouTube. While I got Christopher West on my mind, let's listen to our little Christopher West clip, which I had to do from another account because he wouldn't let me clip it here. Share this tab instead. Very short. Here we go. I'm going to put it on full. I'm going to go full screen.
When the basis of sex is pleasure, well, then the relationship will only last as long as the pleasure does. When the basis of sex is pleasure, well, then the relationship will only last as long as the pleasure does.
That's what NFP is. Pleasure. And when that ain't happening, the relationship ends. Let's look at Lucy right there. Charlie Brown's like, I got a right to kick that football. And she's like, yeah, I'm not feeling that. And I have a right to my good. Okay. So this relationship is over because I have rights too. And you've got a right to the football, but I've got a right to take it away. And that's what I'm doing because I don't like the way this feels. I'm not feeling the respect or whatever anymore. So we're done. Listen to what he said one more time.
When the basis of sex is pleasure, well, then the relationship will only last as long as the pleasure does. Okay.
So, yeah. There's two ends, basically. This is in the Bible and stuff. There's two ends to the conjugal act. Procreation or flesh. Those are your two ends. You can dress it up any way you want. You can articulate all kinds of words about love till the cows come home. Babies, flesh. Those are the two purposes. Those are the two ends. Basically, those are the two reasons why people do the conjugal act. Okay. So when the flesh ain't working, nowadays you have the right to bail, and that's all that happens. Divorce is no longer a sin. Annulment and validity is optional anytime you want. It's voluntary. You want an invalid marriage? You got it. Let's continue. Humanae Vitae. What do we got? All right. Married love, therefore, requires the husband and wife full awareness of their obligations in the matter of responsible parenthood. Well, responsible parenthood is procreation education. That's what it is. You're being irresponsible if you make kids and don't take care of them. That's all responsible parenthood means. But if marriage is love, then responsible parenthood means you can have babies as long as the love is kept alive. Because remember, you have to grow and water your union and all this groovy stuff per gaudium et spes. Okay, now we need the responsible parenthood. And also, if you think you're having a hard time, you can't raise the kids or whatever, then again, married love is number one. So that gives you a reason to do NFP, because we've got a new primary purpose now. Although we don't come out and say it, we just gaslight you. Okay. With regard to the biological processes, responsible parenthood means an awareness of and respect for their proper functions. That's right. That's right. And that's all it is. Responsible parenthood means awareness of and respect for their proper function. Yeah. Do the thing, make the baby. Got to be responsible. That's all responsible parenthood can ever mean. Make a baby, take care of a baby. That's why if you make a baby and you want to bail, the state will say you got to be responsible. That's all it means. But wait, there's more. In the procreative faculty, the human mind discerns biological laws that apply to the human person. Okay. Wait a second. Hang on. Okay, so I guess they were just saying basic Aquinas kind of stuff. Yeah. You have to. That's why they say as long as you kind of know where babies come from, you can consent to marriage. You have capacity to know. If you know where babies come from, that's what you need to consent. That's it. That's why all these annulments are fake, because people know where babies come from. People are capable of making them. That's all you need. The procreative faculty, human mind discerns biological laws. Blah blah blah. Duh. Okay, but let's see what else we got. With regard to man's innate drives, emotions, responsible parenthood means that man's reason and will must exert control over them. Okay. Yeah. With regard to physical, economic, psychological, and social conditions, responsible parenthood is exercised by those who prudently and generously decide not to have more children, by those who, for serious reasons and with due respect to the moral precepts, decide not to have additional children for either a certain or indefinite period of time. That is technically all true, but they don't say how you're going to get that done. So they're going for heart. When stuff gets tough, you can decide with due moral precepts to not have additional children. Okay? But they don't say how. You're just like, you've been gaslit by this point, and your head has been hit with the meat tenderizer enough. You're like, married love, I can decide to okay, I think I'm getting the vision here. You're setting me up for the NFP, just like Lucy sets up Charlie Brown. She talks him into it. We're going to wait till the end. Lucy's going to give Charlie Brown the major gaslight. Oh, yeah, okay. Anyway, responsible parenthood, as we use the term here, has one further, warning. Responsible parenthood has one further essential aspect. Okay, there's that. Essential is a legal term meaning essence of marriage, meaning if you don't have what's essential, you're not valid. But they call it an essential aspect. Okay. You can have an aspect on a $5 bill, but unless you put it in my hands to pay me, it's just an aspect. It doesn't. You can look at it all you want. If I'm holding, it doesn't matter. So aspects don't matter as far as the legal definition of marriage, but they can't tell you that, so they just kind of call it an aspect or a significance or a meaning. And you're like, whoa. Responsible parenthood, as we use the term here, has one further essential aspect of paramount importance. It concerns the objective moral order. I wonder what that objective moral order is, which was established by God, okay, and of which a right conscience is the true interpreter. All right. So we don't know what the moral order is yet, but we're getting there, okay? My little gaslighties, okay? And the right conscience is the true interpreter of this moral order. What they're basically saying is God allows NFP, and your conscience, let your conscience be your guide as to when to use it. That is what they are telegraphing without saying it. All right. Why I keep saying it's a big gaslight. It's a big snow job. In a word, the exercise of responsible parenthood requires that husband and wife, keeping a right order of priorities, recognize their duties toward God, themselves, family, and human society. Bah. Okay. Everyone has duties, but this is another way of saying, look, if you have your priorities right, you know that you have a duty to have babies. Okay? But there are exceptions to duties. This is more of this gaslighting coming in. All right, here we go. Check this out. This is pretty cool. I'm going to make this bigger. Casti Canubii, or Canubii. Sorry I got it wrong in the last video. Casti Canubii. As to the medical and therapeutic indication, hello, right here, physical, economic, physical, and social, that's what they're talking about. As to those medical and therapeutic indications to which, using their own words, we have made reference, venerable brethren, however, much we may pity the mother whose health and even life is gravely imperiled in the performance of the duty allotted to her by nature. There is not the question here of what is called the law of extreme necessity. In other words, it doesn't matter how extreme your situation is. You don't get to use that as an excuse to violate nature. All right. So obviously, if you're having, if your life is gravely imperiled, Casti Canubii would have said, look, use a little NFP if that's what's going on. They don't say that. No. You trust in God. That's what they say. If you think you have grave reason to not have a baby, you don't do what brings babies around. But the rest of it, none of this extreme necessity. No abortions, no contraception, no NFP. I don't care how extreme your necessity is. They've lost that in Humanae Vitae because they have now said that nature is love. Love is the main thing. So if you have extreme necessity, you're not violating love by trying to up the love by getting rid of the baby. That's what's going on. Number 11, the sexual activity in which husband and wife are intimately and chastely united with one another. I mean, what kind of conjugal act are they not intimately and united? It's like, look, it is what it is, man. You don't have to talk about how intimate your intimacy of intimacy is, closeness and closeness is. It's like, it's a conjugal act. That's what it is. Through which human life is transmitted is as the recent council called noble and worthy. By the way, St. Thomas Aquinas says the conjugal act is basically nothing but fornication unless it is excused by procreative intent. So if you're not trying to have kids, it's grave sin. If you put into practice, I mean, if you don't want kids in your mind, that's venial. But if you put in a method to not get them, that's grave sin, just like fornication. You have taken one of the fornication takes education of children out, and NFP takes procreation out. Grave sin. It does not, moreover, cease to be legitimate. Wait a minute. Okay, the conjugal act does not cease to be legitimate even when for reasons independent of their will it is foreseen to be infertile. Yes. Okay. Therefore, menopause. That's what it says in Casti Canubii. Menopause is fine, or if you have birth defects, or I mean, you have reasons why we're doing the thing. Ain't no babies coming. It's not our will. God has taken away the fertility for one reason or another. So if those reasons are independent of your will, that doesn't cease to be legitimate, a.k.a. natural. They don't use the word natural because they're all like, that reminds me, we're going to listen to Michael Hitchborn here in a second. They don't talk about nature here, that the nature of marriage and what it is. They say it does not cease to be legitimate, even for reasons independent of their will. No. Whoops. Let me just fix that. It does not cease to be natural. That's what Casti Canubi says. But we're not going there anymore. We're only talking about legitimacy because marriage is based on justice now. Or excuse me, I shouldn't say that. The conjugal act is rooted in justice, not nature. That's how we get around NFP. We'll just call it no longer nature but justice. You have just cause, you need a just cause, okay? So anyway, for reasons independent of their will, it is foreseen to be infertile. Now let's listen to a little Michael Hitchborn for a second. Hang on. Hold on, just a minute. Sorry, just Hempstead. All right, here we go. Ready, play.
Humane Vitae, to be perfectly honest, I've read it. I've used it before as a foundational document to try and explain things to the leftists and to say that, what these guys are doing is against church teaching. But it's actually kind of a weak document. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make the case that contraception is intrinsically evil. It simply makes the case that it's impermissible within the bounds of marriage. It makes no argument about it from a natural law perspective. So this is kind of problematic. Humane Vitae.
That's it right there. All right. From a natural law perspective, that's because we have thrown nature into the wood chipper or the blender, and we've created a new nature. It's called love wins. That's why Michael Hitchborn said what he just said. But then you have to take that to its logical conclusion that NFP is not licit and that people won't go there. So this is why this gaslight is so strong. And all those people, those little gray heads that listen to CNN and say Orange Man bad, they listen to Humane Vitae and they say NFP good. All of them. Hang on. Pretty much all of them. Not you, I hope. But anyway, let's get back to our NFP or our Humane Vitae. Let's share this tab instead. Okay, independent was first seen. Okay, yeah, for its natural adaptation to the expression and strengthening of the union. No. Union is contract. You have a conjugal union. You have a conjugal contract. You have a carpenter's union. Okay, it's the contract for the carpenters. A conjugal union is a marriage contract. So you don't strengthen the contract, but they're sliding in a bunch of weird words to try to make us think that union is some marriage, a romance novel cover, and that's what we need to strengthen our union. Okay, so Lucy is like, hey, we're not getting our union strengthened, and you're using me as an object, and I have a right to strengthen my union, and I don't think you are. I'm going to take away. I'm going to exercise my right for unity because you're obviously not pursuing it the way I think it should be, and I know what love is, and you don't, Charlie Brown. Boom. Let's go back. Every marital act, okay, by constant teaching, constant doctrine, teaches that each and every marital act must of necessity retain its intrinsic relationship to the procreation of human life. That is kind of a roundabout way of saying that procreation is primary. But they don't quite say that because they don't want to use that word anymore. So they have to wordsmith it a little bit. Every marital act must of necessity retain its intrinsic. Well, how do you retain your intrinsic relationship to the procreation? Yes, we have an intrinsic relationship to the procreation. In other words, it's primary, which means it's independent. But you can't say that. It's independent. Oh. Number 12, union and procreation. This particular doctrine, we're getting juicier and juicier as we go. This particular doctrine, often expounded by the magisterium. This particular doctrine? What doctrine is that? This is where the gaslighting goes deeper and deeper. What particular doctrine? Okay, procreation primary is expounded by the magisterium of the church is based on the inseparable connection established by God. So it's got to be true because God established it, right? Okay. Which man on his own initiative may not break? Oh yeah, of course not, because God established it. So who man can't break? Between the unitive and significance and the procreative significance. Woohoo! We've got significance. Houston, we have significance, which are both inherent to the marriage act. That's crazy. Okay. They are saying procreation primary means procreation dependent on unity. Whatever unity, it's so stupid. It's crazy. But like I said in the beginning, when you watch this video to the end, you will never read or see Humanae Vitae the same again. Gaslight, me friends. Look, they're saying this doctrine from God. There's an inseparable connection between the unitive and the significance and the procreative. No. Their significances or signs have zero to do with law or nature. Marriage is bound by law and it's bound by nature. That's why procreation is primary and it's independent. But they're saying no, there's a sign, this unbroken sign. So I can't think of a good analogy right now. They're basically redefining marriage, but they're making it sound good and high-minded. And you're like, whoa, this is so deep, so profound. That's why Christopher West talks about you like he's the guy is like Emotion City, okay? Or who's the other dude who talks that way? Tony Robbins, okay? Everything's like super mega totally to the max, and you've got to understand the deep meaning. That's what they're doing. Yes, union is a contract. Contract is not a significance. Check, roger that. Hopefully you got that. The reason that this fundamental nature of the Marriage Act, the reason is that the fundamental nature of the Marriage Act, while uniting husband and wife in the closest intimacy, more gaslighting. So, the conjugal act, if you didn't know what the conjugal act was, it's where you unite husband and wife in the closest intimacy. What does that mean? What does the closest intimacy mean? Oh, that means that everyone's really getting along and no one exercised the marital debt or anything. It was all like we were totally both on board to the max and we just were total gift of... No. Okay. Anyway, also renders them capable of generating new life. So look, the fundamental nature, is intimacy, as in intimacy number one, procreation secondary, renders them capable of generating new life. This is so stupid. It's like, duh, the conjugal act makes babies. You didn't know that? The reason of this, and this is the result of laws written into the actual nature of man and women. So the nature, and if each of these essential qualities, there's that word, each of these essential qualities, the unitive and the procreative, so we heard they were significances earlier in number 12, now they're qualities, but a quality or a significance or a meaning or a view or a perspective or there's some other buzzwords they use. I can't think of it right now. Those aren't legal. Those have nothing to do with nature. You have essential ends, You have essential elements. Elements are the elements of marriage that are essential: permanence, exclusivity. The only essential end is procreation and education. Those are inseparable. Procreation and education. You can't raise a whole bunch of crazy kids and let them loose. Anyway, if any of these essential qualities, unitive and procreative, whatever unitive is, what is the legal definition of the unitive quality, which is essential to marriage? Nobody knows. Oh, 2 in 1 flesh, dude. 2 in 1 flesh, dude. It's like, just come on, man. That's why Christopher West gets so emotional to gaslight you to death so you don't go, I have a question. What's the legal definition of unity? Oh, I'm glad you asked that. Blah, blah. It's like, no. Okay. But it fully retains its sense. Okay. You said fully retains itself. The use of marriage fully retains its sense of true mutual love and its coordination to the supreme responsibility of parenthood to which man is called. Oh, sink me. The use of marriage fully retains its sense of true mutual love. All right. Can you partially retain a sense of true mutual love? Can you fully retain a sense of mutual love? Can you fully retain a sense of love? Can you partially it's like stupid. Dude, all this is like, this sounds so great. I want more. And it's ordination to the supreme responsibility of parenthood. Okay. Or it's oriented to the supreme responsibility of parenthood. It's oriented toward procreation in a natural way. The conjugal act doesn't care about education. The conjugal act doesn't care about anything else except doing what nature does, which is make a baby. To which man is called. All right, this is gaslight, super gaslight. Sorry. Hey, while I'm thinking of it, these videos take a long time to research, and that's why I make them long. Just for the record, we get them down. So I do. This message goes over like a lead balloon. Please click like is what I'm saying. It doesn't cost you anything. I need some likes, not because I care, but it's just algorithm, so more people can see it. Because I could do a fluff NFP video and get like 10,000 views and tons, but and probably 2 comments. Speaking of, don't be shy in the comment section. You hear me say something you don't like, and I'll, as you know, I will talk to you as long as you want in the comment section. That's the difference between me and all these other cool kids. I don't avoid any questions, and I will talk as much as you want. You just let me know what you want to talk about or think I'm wrong or whatnot. Number 13, men rightly observe that a conjugal act. Oh, this is juicy. This is crazy. Men rightly observe. Okay, do they? Men. This is the gaslighting. Hello. All right, so dudes hanging around the fire. They correctly observe that a conjugal act imposed. Woohoo! Is that like marital rape or something? Which doesn't exist. A conjugal act imposed on one's partner, because it's an equal partnership of life and love, without regard to his or her condition or personal or reasonable wishes in the matter, is no true act of love, and therefore offends the moral order. All right, time out. The right over the body for acts suitable for the generation, in and of themselves, suitable for the generation of children. That's the contract. So, look, you can impose the conjugal act because it is your right. Oh, shoot. Someone's calling. Hang on a sec. Let me push pause. All right. Had to take care of business there. Anyway, let's see. 13, I think we already said this, the conjugal act impose. Oh, yeah, here we go. The juicy part. Right. Marital rape. Anyone? Okay. If you impose your conjugal act against someone's reasonable wishes, it is no true act of love and therefore offends the moral order. There's a mouthful right there. The moral order. We cannot offend the moral order because the moral order comes from God. Therefore, it is offensive to God, and that would be illicit. And so you don't have the right to the conjugal act if it is against the wishes of the other. So the other person has equal right against the conjugal act, so they can impose their wishes on your conjugal act. So it works both ways. They're saying, because it has to be a true act of love, or it offends the moral order. Okay, so just use this Lucy example. It's so easy, right? Hang on a second. Yeah. So, okay, Charlie Brown wants to kick the football. He's got a right to do that. Okay, he wants to, and Lucy's not having it, or she doesn't want to, or whatever. But she's saying, "Hey, I have a right that my personal wish is that I don't want to, and if you do this, it's not going to be a true act of love, and I have a right to. You have to ask me how I feel about it, because if I don't want to, it's not a true act of love. Therefore, it is illicit because it offends the moral order." So you think you have a marital debt right to the conjugal act? Sorry, bro, you don't, because I have a right to my wishes about it, because that's based in the fact that the moral order dictates, per Humanae Vitae 13, it's got to be a true act of love, which means we both be on the same page. Everything's super groovy, thumbs up, romance, cover, novel. if you get it. So you used to have a right to the marital debt, and there were no exceptions to that right. And there was just one right. That's the marriage contract, procreation primary. But now we have love primary and procreation is secondary, and they're both dependent on each other. Okay. So Lucy's got a right that she didn't have before, and that new right is her wishes. It says it right there in Humanae Vitae. Okay. If you try to impose, you want to kick the football, but she doesn't want to because it's not attractive love, then the moral order is not offended. So NFP has created the antidote to marital debt, and it's called the right to love means the right to deny the marital debt legally. New rights, okay? And when you talk about reasonable wishes, personal wishes, the personal wishes, you can't put those into... my personal wishes could be all over the place. We don't know. This is why the Commentary of Canon Law says that it is impossible to state all the rights and duties of marriage, because can you put Lucy's personal wishes on a piece of paper? No. They go to the moon and back, and that's just getting started, you know? Love wins. That's all it means. And when love wins, homo wins, because marriage is no longer based on nature. Dig it? It's based on other stuff. Hello? Okay. If they further reflect, you know, these guys hanging around the campfire who rightly observed, if they further reflect, they must also recognize that an act of mutual love, which impairs the capacity to transmit life. Okay, yeah, this is more of the gaslighting. They don't call it just the conjugal act. They call it an act of mutual love. That's new speak for the primary purpose of marriage is LUV. Okay? Okay, so if they reflect, they must also recognize that a conjugal act which impairs the capacity to transmit life, which God the Creator, in case you didn't know who God was, He's the Creator. God the Creator, through specific laws, has built into it, frustrates His design, and constitutes the norm of marriage. Wait a minute. Okay, so act of mutual love, capacity to transmit life, but he frustrates his design, which constitutes the norm of marriage and contradicts the will of the author of life. Okay. Okay. So if they further reflect, they must also recognize that an act of love, which impairs the capacity of life, frustrates his design, which constitutes the norm of marriage. So the design of marriage is the norm of marriage and constitutes the will of the author of life. This is all like new fancy speak. What they're trying to say is the norm of marriage is the personalistic norm, which is love, okay? And then they say it contradicts the will of the author of life, which is they're saying they're trying to say in a fancy way that let me push pause and think this through just a second. Yeah, so they're saying if it impairs procreation, it contradicts God instead of the will of the author of life. So they're trying to say that the norm of marriage is love primary, but they can't come out and say that. That's why they have to do backflips here. That's what theology of the body is. It's one giant pretzel backflip to say procreation is secondary. And it takes a long time to get there. That's what's going on here. That's why they use these weird words. Okay? Contradicts the will of the author of life because they use the word life. No, it's like, if this is why contraception is intrinsically evil, because the nature of marriage, the natural destiny of the conjugal act is procreation in nature. You can't change that. It doesn't matter what reason there is to try to not have a baby. You cannot justify changing nature. Can't be justified. The justification doesn't even come into it because it's not based on justice. You cannot make it natural to try to not get pregnant. But we're not talking about it anymore because nature's all goofed up now with Humanae Vitae and 1951 midwives. Okay, so they have to roundabout way saying it offends the will of the author of life. Wink, wink. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm getting that. Okay. Hence, to use this divine gift while depriving it, to use this divine gift while depriving it, even only partially, of its meaning and purpose, is equally repugnant to the nature of man. Look, in other words, to use the conjugal act while even partially depriving it of its purpose violates nature. That's what they're saying. Okay, well, what is the purpose of the conjugal act? Well, we can't come out and tell you that because we need Trent Horn to tell us that. It's like it's union. It's one flesh union of love. That's the purpose. Okay, and then procreation comes from that. No. Life-giving love. Scott Hahn, whacked out. Sorry, it's contract giving. A life-giving contract. So anyway, it's conjugal act. I wouldn't call it a divine gift, but that's what they're calling it. While depriving it even partially of its meaning. Wait a minute. Whoa. How do you deprive the divine gift of its meaning? It doesn't matter because meaning. If you deprive it of its meaning, that's going to violate nature. No. Meaning has nothing to do with nature. View. Like I said, all those other words that don't mean anything legally. There's another buzzword. I can't think of it. A weasel word they use. Okay. So this is where we have these two inseparable significances, unity and procreation. So to use the divine gift while depriving it only partially of its meaning and purpose. No. You can deprive it of its meaning all you want. It doesn't have anything to do with nature. Nature doesn't care what the meaning is. It just knows if something's going to happen or not. All right. So that's why they call it a divine gift, because they're like, you can't deprive the divine gift of its meaning. It's a conjugal act by contract. All right. It's not a divine gift. It's a natural marriage of two Zoroastrians. All right. Same. More gaslighting. Okay. All right. But to experience the gift of married love while respecting the laws of conception is to acknowledge that one is not the master of reason. Okay. Yes. To experience the gift of married love. More gaslighting. All that means is to use marriage, to use the conjugal act. It's not a gift of married love. Not legally. But they're saying it is legal. This, like I said, gaslighting is they pound you in the head over and over and over till you get to the point where you're like, oh, I guess I've been pounded on the head so much I'm thinking like them now. Let us continue. That's why this propaganda on NFP, it just keeps going. They can't let up. If they let up, the house of cards falls. It's got to be kept up with Has to. If you just let nature take its course, if you let the internet and social media pick up NFP, it's dead. You have to keep it alive through propaganda and guilt and everyone like that. He has no such, he has no such dominion over his specifically sexual faculties, for these are concerned by their very nature with the generation of life. Not all Humanae Vitae is bad, of course. They do say some correct things in here, which we'll get to. They really do. Because they have to. This is why it's Pius XII said some really good stuff about the nature of marriage, the essence of marriage, the legal of marriage. Then he said this crazy that he said that basically contraception is unnatural except when it's natural. Contraception, or to try to not get pregnant is intrinsically evil except when it's not intrinsically evil. That's what I was going to make the title of the video of. I should have got that back. I should have changed that. Is it intrinsically evil except when it's not. That's all this is going on here. Okay? I'm going to write that down. Hang on a second. Oh, get out of my way. I'm trying to push pause, and this stupid thing is in the way. Now I can't even push pause. Hang on, let me full screen this. Learn more. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. All right, well, hang on just a cotton picking minute. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I wrote down a little bit of my brain streaming here. NFP is intrinsically evil except when it's not. That's the problem. This is the disconnect. This is why it can't stand on its own. This has to be propped up with gaslighting and propaganda. NFP violates nature except when it doesn't. That's what Humanae Vitae is saying, because they're talking about, and Pius XII too. You can't have it both ways. This is why there's no middle ground, which gets me to my next point here. Here I got a question. Why do you need a reason to be open to life? If NFP is always open to life, you don't need a reason to be open to life. You don't need a reason to be natural. It's stupid. Why? There's no. You see what I'm saying? It's like marriage must be oriented toward life is the point. The Catholic position, understanding of nature is it must be oriented toward life, not just open. Okay, so this is there's like something to the NFP that doesn't make sense. It's natural, but you have to have a serious reason to use it or a just reason to use it. Therefore, it's based in justice. That's the problem with it. Okay, the conjugal act is not based in justice. It's based in nature. It's an act of nature, increase and multiply. You cannot mess with that. This is why you don't need a reason to be open to life, which is why everyone doesn't. That's why this whole like grave reason thing, like Pius XII said, it's a grave without a grave reason is an offense against nature. Doesn't make any sense, and that's why everyone's like, Gregory Popchak, Christopher West, not really immortal sin. I don't even. No one talks about sin anymore with NFP because it doesn't make any sense. They don't do that. They just say you have to be generous. Well, yeah, but that's not it. Nature dictates babies only. If NFP is natural, then you don't need any restrictions on it because you're just being natural. You're just pursuing love. Why would you want to restrict that? Okay, you know what I mean? For what? Okay, so if NFP is not nature, it's all restrictions, none allowed if it's not nature. But if it's natural, you can do whatever you want. I mean, you can just do as much natural as you want. So nature with restrictions, which is what NFP is, makes no sense. It's a middle ground of it's ridiculous, which means that they have to call it duty. That's why they say duty can have restrictions, duty can have exceptions, but nature can't. Okay? NFP is a house of cards, like I said, and this is part of why Michael Hitchborn was complaining about Humanae Vitae. It's a weak document. Dude, it's a gaslighting crazy thing about marriage as love and not procreation primary. However, as we're going to find out, it does say a few things that's good about that. It contradicts itself, just like Pius XII does. Let's continue. Okay. Constitute the norm of marriage, gift of married love. Yeah, cool. He has no such dominion over special. These are concerned for nature with generation of life. Cool. All right. Number 14, unlawful birth control methods. Therefore, we base our words an hour and 28 minutes. You guys, I wonder if this is going to be longer than Casti Canubi. We base our words, my Casti Canubi video. We base our words on the first principles of a human and Christian doctrine of marriage. Wow. A human and Christian doctrine of marriage. See, it used to be just a Christian doctrine of marriage because that's all you need is Christian doctrine. Is Christian doctrine alone inhuman? No, we have to have a human and Christian doctrine. It's obvious Vatican II is flawed if you're saying we need this new doctrine, this human doctrine. Man number one and all that. It's not infallible. Humanae Vitae is not infallible. Vatican II is not infallible. No encyclical is necessarily infallible, unless it's stated as such. Okay. Wait a minute. Where were we? Therefore, we base our words on the first principles of the human and Christian doctrine of marriage. There is no human doctrine of marriage. No. That's why they say the conjugal act must be done in a human manner. That's the new code. We used to do the regular conjugal act, but now it's got to be done in a human manner, which means Charlie Brown's going to kick the football, but she says, no, I have a right that you kick the football in a human manner, Charlie Brown. And you are not kicking it with a total gift of self in a human manner. You're just kicking the football in a legalistic sense, and that's not love. That's what we got. That's the crazy we got going on today. Similarly excluded. Oh, this is pretty good. Similarly excluded is any action. Okay, so if you do anything that is specifically intended to prevent procreation, that is excluded. So you cannot do anything intended to prevent procreation. All right. What is family planning's intention? What is it? What family planning, is it an action? Yes. Does it have an intention? Yes. What is that intention? To prevent procreation. Okay. So it's excluded. This is why we got brain damage. This is why Humanae Vitae is a house divided, because it comes from Pius XII, a house divided. Pius XI was pretty straightforward and used clear language in Casti. Pius XII started using wiggly, weird language in midwives. He didn't say that using NFP without a grave cause violated nature. He says it violates the very nature of married life. What is the very nature of married life? Okay. Well, nature is, it's biology, man. But now we're saying, no, nature is all this other stuff. That's what we had to do. We have to change nature. This is why NFP can never work unless you control the language and keep the gaslighting going and keep the propaganda going. And it'll never fly with the internet. The internet's going to kill NFP. It's going to be a tough one to dismantle because it's so entrenched, and you have that absolute army of Catholics out there like the little gray heads that watch CNN that all say bad orange man bad. No, NFP good, Christopher West good, love good, you know. There's so many other personalities that could fit under too. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, neither is it valid to argue as a justification. See, they never use the word sexual intercourse and stuff in Humane Vitae or in Casti, because they said you have to be very modest about this stuff. Whereas you listen to Janet Smith and all she says is sex this, sex that, you have sex, we have sex, everyone has sex. I was like, give me a break. That's like Planned Parenthood talking. It's weird. It's weird. Okay, just chill out. Things are modest. Okay, we need to speak appropriately. So Humanae Vitae is kind of coming on the claws a little bit about all this with this modern language. Neither is it valid to argue as a justification for sexual intercourse, which is deliberately contraceptive, justify that a lesser evil is to be preferred, greater one. All right, hang on a minute. I don't even know why I highlighted that. Okay, so you can't justify deliberate contraception. That's because marriage is based in nature and has nothing to do with justification. However, if you have grave reason, why not? Because if holding back the football is a good and she has a right to that good, and if you use contraception, what's wrong with that? Because her doing this is nature. She has a right to this love that Charlie Brown's not giving her correctly, according to her subjectivity. So why not contracept? You know, why not, I don't know, pop the football or something, right? You know, what's wrong with that? She doesn't have to just go natural or organic. She could just, put a hole in the football. Why not? Just use a little technology, a lot easier. That way she doesn't have to hold it all the time and move it around. She can just poke a hole in it and just be done. You know, patch the hole later if Charlie Brown wants to shape up or whatever. Hang on a second. Okay. It is never lawful even for the, okay, listen to this. It is never lawful even for the gravest reason to do evil that good may come of it. That's right. In other words, to intend directly something which is of its very nature contradicts the moral order. There's that word again, moral order. The new moral order is love first. Love wins, personalist norm, the true human love experience, the strengthening of the bond. That is the new moral order. Number 1, love. Number 2, procreation. That's the new moral order. Okay, so they're saying, even for the gravest reason, you can't do evil that good may come of it. Uh-huh. And you can't violate nature. Okay? No matter what. Except nature is now the quote, new moral order, which is love wins. Casti Canubi famously said, number 54, no reason, however grave. Okay? You can't violate nature for any reason, however grave. And they said because procreation is the natural. This is why all family planning is wrong, because procreation is the natural purpose. Yeah. To argue this. Okay, I think that's enough for that. I think we basically hit that pretty good. Yeah. So never lawful for the gravest reasons to do evil that good may come of it. Yep. So it's all like Michael Hitchmore said, where's the nature? The nature, it's the new moral order. So they've telegraphed, they've gaslit us, they've hit us in the head with the meat tenderizer enough that the moral order is love wins. That's the moral order. That's what all the little gray heads say. I should take a picture of that so we can look at it. All right, hang on. Family of say. Consequently, it is a serious error to think that the whole married life or otherwise normal relations can justify sexual intercourse, which is deliberately contraceptive and so intrinsically wrong. Is that a sin? Let me read this again, just a minute. All right. Anyway, yeah, like I said, they're saying you can't justify contraception. It has nothing to do with justice. It's all about nature. So you can't make, this is why Casti Canubi used the language, you can't make what is natural, or you can't make what is unnatural conform to nature. They never said justify or anything like that. But if marriage is based on duty, or if procreation is based on duty, then you can justify. Because they say contraceptive is intrinsically wrong. And I don't even know if they call it a sin. We'll have to see, I can't remember. Anyway, number 15. Lawful and therapeutic. On the other hand, the church does not consider at all illicit the use of those therapeutic means necessary to cure bodily diseases, even if a foreseeable impediment to procreation should result from them, wherever such impediment is not directly intended to any motive whatsoever. In other words, yeah, you can use contraceptive if you're not trying to do it to not have kids, because it's not illicit, because the only thing that makes it licit is procreation primary. They're kind of admitting it backdoor that if you use therapeutic means to not love, that's still licit, because love has nothing to do with the legal definition. But they're saying they're kind of admitting procreation is what you need for lyceity. All right, recourse to infertile periods. This question, we must give a clear reply, because they're talking about how everyone's talking about it. As we noted in number 3, everyone's wondering about what are we going to do, moral laws regarding marriage. And now people are super smart and they need to know, can we use birth control and whatever? To this question, we must give a clear reply. The church is the first to praise and commend the application of human intelligence to an activity. Okay, so they're like, hey, this is where the gaslighting comes in, because we have to thread the needle. We have to say contraception bad, NFP good, and how can we possibly do that, because they're both do the same thing. Okay, so the church is the first to praise and commend the application of human intelligence to an activity, but she affirms that this must be done within the limits of the order of reality established by God. There we are again, that order of reality. What is that order of reality? Okay, look on your forehead where you see all those little tiny marks where they've been hitting you with the meat tenderizer. The new order of reality, kids, is love wins. That is the new order. So you can use human intelligence to tweak, increase, and multiply because that's secondary now. Let's go to what the Sacred Penitentiary said in 1853 about this, because everyone loves to talk about, oh, NFP got started and it's been approved all along. And even the Sacred Penitentiary back in the 1800s said it's cool, right? Question. So they said it to basically the Holy Office. Certain married couples relying on the opinion of learned physicians, as an NFP is just kind of really getting perfected. It's been around since St. Augustine, but are convinced that there are several days each month in which conception cannot occur. Are those who do not use the marriage rite except on such days to be disturbed? No, you're going to bug them, especially if they have legitimate reasons for abstaining from the conjugal act. The answer was, those spoken of are not to be disturbed, provided they do nothing to impede conception. So you don't have to max out kids. We don't care what day of the month, really, you're using the marriage, okay? As long as it's not during the menses. That's no right there. But anyway, if they have legitimate reasons for abstaining, especially if they have so yeah, if people are on a business trip, things happen, whatever, you don't mess with them. As long as they do nothing to impede conception, that is the point, okay? As long as you're not trying to avoid conception, doing anything, okay? So family planning is impeding conception. It impedes conception one way or the other, right? Like I said in that analogy, you can miss the bus or you can shoot the bus with an AK-47 and pop all the tires. Either way, you're not getting on the bus. One way is natural and one way is not. Moving on. If, therefore, there are well-grounded reasons, people like to talk about this. Why they said well-grounded, well-grounded in what? What are non-well-grounded reasons? Grounded in what? Anyway, the Latin says just reasons. If you go to the Latin translation of Humanae Vitae, it says just causes, just reasons. So if there are well-grounded or just reasons, therefore they're saying conjugal act is not based on nature, but it's based on justice, just like going to Mass on Sunday. So if you have well-grounded, just reasons to stay home from church on Sunday, you don't have to keep holy the Sabbath by going to Mass, because you're getting your leg amputated in an emergency, or I don't know, but if you just want to stay home and watch Dukes of Hazzard reruns, that's not a good enough reason. That's what everyone talks about with NFP. Yeah, if you just want to go on a European vacation. It's all about nature, my dog. Therefore, there are well-grounded reasons, just causes, to violate nature. Reasons for spacing births. That's just more euphemism. For contraception. So if there are just reasons for contraception arising from the physical or psychological condition of the husband and wife, which we heard earlier from Cassie Kanubi, says it don't matter how extreme your situation is, you can't do it. There is no such thing as law of extreme necessity when talking about intrinsic things like nature. Where's my little note I wrote? I forgot what I did with it. Anyway, I put it somewhere. Is it over here? This must be it. Yeah. It violates nature except when it doesn't. The church teaches that married people may. The church teaches that married people may they take advantage of the natural cycles. No, the church does not teach that when you're having a hard time with something, you can violate nature. It doesn't teach that. It doesn't take, but they say the church teaches you can take advantage of the natural cycles. Take advantage of what? Or how do you take advantage of them? Just use them? What? Imminent in the reproductive system and engage in marital intercourse only during those times that are infertile. Okay, then they admit, thus controlling birth. So you're controlling birth by timing. Okay, and this says the church teaches. Okay, first off, there's no such thing as a just reason, justice involved with spacing births, quote unquote. As we learned in the beginning, Increase and multiply is not a precept. It is not a command. It is a fact of nature. God's going to create motivation, and then God says, when you do the thing, the babies happen. End of story. You want to space the birth? You don't do the thing. That's it. Okay. Now we're getting to the heart of this whole talk. You've been on the edge of your seat I'm sure. Okay. The marriage teaches that the church teaches that married people may take advantage of the natural cycles, thus controlling birth. Oh, in a way which is not in the least offend the moral principles which we have just explained. Oh, major gaslight, major smoke screen, snow job. Let's talk about this. This is I told you you're never going to see Humanae Vitae the same way after watching this video. No one's going to point out exactly what I'm going to point out right now. It took me a while to figure it out. Okay, so they're saying it does not in the least offend, which is gaslighting, because you're like, gosh, isn't it a little bit offensive? Doesn't it kind of offend God to sort of use increase and multiply to like not increase? That seems a little weird to me. No, not in the least. Get that out of your head. It's not even the least offensive. The moral principles which we have just explained. Okay, what moral principles have you just explained that does not offend in the least? It doesn't offend natural law in the least. They don't say that because it does. It violates natural law, so they don't say that because natural law can't change. But we're going to call the new, remember in the very beginning, we got new principles, new challenges, new understandings, new this, new that, new everything. So we have a new moral order now, okay? And those are the moral principles, the moral principles which we have just explained. So everywhere in this talk that I've highlighted in red, they speak of the moral principles, which is the new moral order, which is everything's got to be a true act of love. So the moral principles that are not offended by NFP or by Lucy taking the football away is the fact that it's perfectly natural to not kick the football. It's the purpose of Charlie Brown running and kicking the football is not to kick the football if Lucy so decides that's not the case. Okay, so we're changing nature. Everyone knows you kick the football, so it goes. Even Harrison Butker knows that. Like we said in the beginning, nothing natural about NFP. Okay, but now the new order is both things are natural. Missing this? And, oh, by the way, this is so strengthening for their relationship. Big time. Let's go back. Let's keep going. All right. Where were we? Okay. Hang on. Oh, did we? Okay. Therapeutic means order of reality established by God. Moral principles. Oh, yes. We have just explained the moral principles, which we have just explained. So that's what Humanae Vitae is based on. The moral principles that they've explained. It's not based on natural law, unchanging nature, the primary purpose of the conjugal act. It's not based on any of that. It's based on the moral principles that they have just explained. That's what it's based on. Then, my friend, it footnotes to 20. And when you go down to see what the footnote of 20 is, lo and behold, it is Pius XII Midwives 1951. That's the whole friggin' thing that NFP is based on. Pius XII saying NFP is nature, except when it's not. NFP, contraception is intrinsically evil, except when it's not. That's the crazy that it's built on. So how did they change it? How did they fix 2 + 2 = 5? They said, we make love primary. That's how we are able to, quote, justify not having kids when things get hard. And those are our new moral principles. It's called the new order, the order of reality, the moral order. Here's more moral order, right conscience, moral order. It's all everything in red in here. All right, let's go back. Now I know what I'm talking about. All right. So yes, the moral principles that it doesn't offend in the least are Love wins. Okay. Neither the church nor her doctrine are inconsistent when she considers it lawful for married people to take advantage of the infertile period. Okay, so neither the church nor her doctrine is inconsistent when she considers it lawful or married people to, I don't know about that, okay? Because here, this is more like wordsmithing. This is super canon law wordsmithing. Okay, so church doctrine says it's lawful to take advantage of the infertile period. Yes, that is a true statement. Like we said, like the sacred penitentiary says, they're not to be disturbed. If all they're doing is avoiding fertility, there are several days each month when conception does not occur. And then do they see how they don't say like Janet Smith, sex, 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 sex? They say, are those who do not use the marriage rite. See, they use more chill language, more modest language, which you're supposed to do. Are those who do not use the marriage rite except on such days to be disturbed, especially if they have legitimate reasons for abstaining from it? See, doesn't matter what day, but the purpose matters. So long as they do nothing to impede conception, that is the church teaching. So the church and her doctrine are not inconsistent when she considers it lawful for married people to take advantage of the infertile period. Yes, it's lawful, but it ain't if you're trying to impede conception, okay? But this is part of the gaslighting, and you've getting hit in the head so much with that meat tenderizer, you don't even see straight anymore. You're turning into one of those gray heads that says Orange Man bad, NFP good, that kind of thing, because it's love, and St. Paul VI said so. So, hey, don't forget about John Paul II. He's a saint too, and he said so. Okay, so it depends on what purpose you're taking advantage of those infertile periods. Not if you're doing it to not have babies. Okay, if you're only taking advantage of them to not have babies, and then you're combining that with avoiding fertility. No, that'll get you to hell right there. You're saying, God, thanks for nature, not having it. Yeah, move over, Bruce Jenner. Okay. In reality, those two cases are okay. But condemns as always unlawful the use of means which directly prevent conception, even when the reasons for given of the later practice appear to be upright and serious. So if you got tons of good reasons, it is unlawful to use means directly preventing conception. Yeah, okay, so the church is saying it's unlawful to use conception, but why? Like Michael Hitchmore was talking about, because it violates nature, that's why. But we don't say that anymore because nature is the new order. And we don't want to get too specific. Don't ask too many questions about what the new order is, because that new order is personalistic norm number one. Love wins is the new order. Shh, don't say the quiet part out loud. Don't go there. No further questions. We're not allowed to talk about that. In reality, those two cases are completely different. Not even a little bit different. Completely different. In the former, they married right. Okay. In reality, in the two cases, in the former, the married couple rightly uses a faculty provided them by nature. Wait a minute. So they're basically they're not specifically telling you, because they just got done saying taking advantage of the infertile period is totally fine. Yeah, but they didn't say for what purpose. So now they're telegraphing. They're sort of trying to let you know that this is what we mean, but we really didn't say it because we can't say it. We're saying that in reality, these two. So if you use NFP, you are using rightly a faculty provided them by nature. No, you're not using it rightly because you're trying to thwart the natural destiny, which is babies. Casti Canubi 53 or 4, one of those. Okay. In the latter, they obstruct the natural development of the generative process. So they're admitting the generative process is natural. Therefore, if you're not trying to work the development of the generative process, you're violating nature. And that's what family planning does. Any way you want to plan your family, it doesn't matter. It's all about impeding the generative process. And part of the process to start is you have to actually do it, okay? And so if you're always playing hide the egg, you're impeding the generational process from the process from even getting started, from even happening. It cannot be denied that in each case, the married couple, for acceptable reasons, whoa. We had just reason, we had well-grounded reasons, but now we have acceptable reasons. So they just keep, where's my meat tenderizer? It cannot be denied that for each in each case, so using NFP or using artificial contraception, for acceptable reasons, they are both perfectly clear in their intention to avoid children and wish to make sure that none will result. How open to life does that sound? You are clear. You want to avoid children and wish that make sure that none will result, but we're open to life. That's why, no, you have to be, but we're oriented to life. We're trying to get pregnant. At the same time, we want to avoid that pregnancy, and we wish that no pregnancy happens, but we're trying to get pregnant. I'm going to turn the heater on. That's why this thing is incoherent. That's why we're not allowed to talk about this. That's why people don't want to discuss any of it that are part of Catholic Inc., like Janet Smith, Christopher West. Heck, Taylor Marshall won't go there. A lot of these guys, they're just blocked. They're all blocked. They blocked me, I should say. Who else? Patrick Coffin. Wish to make Chris Stefanik. Wish to make sure that no result. But okay. So anyway, it cannot be denied. The contraception doesn't want any babies. NFP doesn't want any babies. So they're saying that it's okay though to use NFP even though you don't want babies. Therefore, they're basically admitting procreation is a secondary purpose because love is the new order. Right. Okay. Husband and wife ready to abstain from intercourse during the fertile period as often for reasonable motive. Oh, yeah. Now we had acceptable reasons. Now we have reasonable motives. See, they keep changing it because they can't stick on one thing because nothing makes sense. You can't keep it's not big. Anyway, now they say reasonable motives. Motivation for what? The birth of another child is not desirable. And when okay, I'm talking too much, sorry. But it is equally true that it is exclusively in the NFP case that husband and wife are ready to abstain from intercourse during the fertile period as often as the reasonable motives of the birth of another child is not desirable. And when the infertile period recurs, people have been talking to me on Twitter. There's no such thing as the technically infertile period. It just ebbs and flows, obviously. So there's no perfect infertile period. So when the risk to getting pregnant becomes low enough, because there's always a risk of getting pregnant, when it becomes low enough, you can take that chance, even if you have. But if you have reasonable, all you need is reasonable motives. They don't have to be grave reasons, because if you have a grave reason, you can't take any risk. If I had a gun that shot 100 rounds and only one bullet in there, would you play Russian roulette? Click, click, click. No. But I'm losing my train of thought a little bit, but the point is that if you can't have another kid, then you can't take any chances, and NFP is taking chances. And when the infertile period occurs, they use okay, here we go. Here's the new order again. They use their married intimacy. Okay, so remember, to express their mutual love. So, what's going on here is they're using their married intimacy to express their mutual love. Mutual love's number one, and it's not about kicking the football necessarily. They're just doing other things, okay? And this is perfectly lawful, and this is natural right now. It's the new primary purpose, mutual love. Okay, that is the solution to Pius XII. When the infertile period recurs, they use their married intimacy to express their mutual love. That's the new order of nature. Love wins. Right there. That's how you solve Pius XII saying it violates nature if you don't have a good reason. Now we're saying nature is not procreation. It's mutual love. Procreation secondary. It's a duty, etc. All right. Let's go to number 17. A man who grows accustomed to the use of contraceptive methods, family planning for that matter, may forget the reverence due to a woman. And disregarding her physical and emotional equilibrium, reduce her to a mere instrument for the satisfaction of his own desires, no longer considering her as his partner, whom he should surround with care and affection. Yeah, okay. Hang on just a second. Anyway, all family planning uses the other spouse for a satisfaction of their own desires. Oh, they say his own desires. So it's an anti-man thing, really. It's all about the woman here. They're saying that marital debt is no longer absolute, so you have a contrary right. That's why Lucy is using her right, okay, for emotional equilibrium. So she's saying no. So anyway, what about the reverence due to the man? Okay. Anyway, finally, blah, blah, blah. Public authorities who care little for the precepts of moral law. The precepts of moral law. Now that we've discovered that it has new precepts with love wins, it's changed. What did I write here? Babies keep the reverence up. No family planning. Yeah, that's right. If you just have kids all the time, there's plenty of reverence because the purpose and the dignity and all that of the other person happens because you don't no longer focus on just the relationship. You focus on what it does, which is babies. So there's plenty of reverence. If you have 15 kids, there's going to be reverence there no matter what, really. There should be. Okay. If it could well happen, therefore, that when people either individually or in a family or social life experience the inherent difficulties of the divine law and are determined to avoid them, they may give into the hands of public authorities the power to intervene in the most personal and intimate responsibilities of husband and wife. Darn tootin'. That's right. I wrote here, Catholic families now belong to the state. That's exactly right. So look right here. She's saying that that this is now that the moral good, the moral order is her right to seek something other than the marital debt. There, she takes that to the state and say enforce it. That's why divorce isn't a sin anymore. Okay, limit to man's power. We're almost done here, you guys. Unless we are willing, consequently, unless we are willing that the responsibilities of procreating life should be left to the arbitrary decision of men, that's what family planning is. It's using the responsibility of procreation. That's all nature is procreation. To be left to the arbitrary decision of men, we must accept that there are certain limits beyond which it is wrong to go to the power of man over his own body. Okay, so Lucy she's violating the limits because she has no power to change, increase, and multiply. I'm picking on Lucy here because Humanae Vitae is totally gynocentric. To the power of his own body and individual natural functions. Natural functions. Limits, let it be said, which no one, whether as a private individual or public authority, can lawfully exceed. That's exactly what Casti Connubii said in 8. Nobody can circumscribe at all, increase, and multiply. So they're saying, they're telegraphing to you, now that your head has been bashed in enough by the meat tenderizer of the new order, that when they're talking about the arbitrary decisions of men, they're talking about artificial contraception. Actually, it's any family planning is a decision of men. All right. These limits are expressly imposed because the reverence due to the whole human organism. What is the reverence due to the whole human organism? they're saying that is the new law, the new order. You can't just, it's not about nature. It's the whole human organism, which transcends nature, her feelings and stuff. So Lucy is not feeling reverence to her whole human organism. So just she's exercising her right to take the football away because she's saying, I have a right to do that. No, you don't. Not if you get married, because you consented to football down, gets kicked every time. If that's the marital debt right there. She's like, no. Now I have a new right, because you have to, it's all about how I feel too. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Here's Cassidy Canubi 8 right here. Check it out. To circumscribe in any way the principal ends of marriage, which are procreation and education, laid down in the beginning by God himself in the words, increase and multiply, is beyond the power of any human law. Okay, so are we circumscribing in any way increase and multiply by only taking advantage of the infertile periods? Yes, we are. That's why you can't do it. But like Michael Hitchborn was complaining, they don't talk about that. They don't define the new nature. They're just talking about the moral norms, and they just got it's telegraphed, okay? It's gaslit. Let's keep going. We're going to talk about the principle of totality here in a minute, I think. Oh, here it is. Yeah. And its natural functions in light of the principles we stated earlier. Yeah, see? They don't talk about which principles right here. The ones we stated earlier. The principles that they stated earlier is their new order, which is, I said this about 50 times, love first. In accordance with the correct understanding of the principle of totality, enunciated by our predecessor, Pius XII. The principle of totality. Okay, so let's talk about real quick what that is. That means that people are saying, what they're trying to say that it means is, as long as I have a couple babies here or there, we can use contraception. So we were open to life. We did our duty. We had 15 kids and a little contraception. Or we had 15 kids, so we do a little NFP. No, each act has to be oriented toward life. But they're saying the Humanae Vitae is redefining principle of totality. And I'll tell you why in a second. Let's read what Pius XII said principle of totality is. The hand, the foot, and the heart and the eye are an integral part, destined in every respect to be incorporated in the whole organism. Independent of the organism, it has by its very nature no meaning, no finality. That's right. If you have just a foot by itself, no, or an eye by itself, no. The whole body has to remain integral and together. But they are saying now an incorrect understanding of principle of totality, which is the conjugal act is for more by nature than just, quote, kicking the football or just procreation. She has to feel total about this. So if she's not feeling it, she doesn't have to do that thing. That is how they've hijacked principle of totality in Humanae Vitae. It's wrong what they're doing. They're trying hard to gaslight you into saying you've got to love first or it's not licit. That's not Catholic, but that's what they're saying. Blah, blah, blah. Since the church did, this is number 18, concern of the church. Since the church did not make either of these laws, she cannot be their arbiter, only the guardian and interpreter. It could never be right for her to declare lawful what is in fact unlawful. Yeah, and it can never be right to declare natural what is in fact unnatural. But they don't say that because we don't talk about that anymore. In preserving intact the whole moral law of marriage, okay, which means love wins now, the church is convinced that she is contributing to the creation of a truly human civilization. Okay. What's the difference between a civilization and a truly human one? Nothing. But you have to have this new truly human thing. This like marriage has to be true love or it's not licit. She urges man not to betray his personal responsibilities by putting all his faith in technical expedients In this way, she defends the dignity of husband and wife. Well, NFP is a technical expedient. You're just using science to figure out how to get around increase and multiply. This course of action shows that the church is sincere and unselfish. Not really, because they're saying that you can be selfish with just using your NFP. So, if the church is to be sincere and unselfish, then you got to explain the whole what nature is. Just the purpose is procreation. That's it. Yeah. Pastoral directives. Having recalled men to observe and respect the divine law regarding matrimony, now you've all been reprogrammed that the divine law is love wins. They did not also support mankind in honest regulation of birth amid difficult conditions. How do you make regulation not honest? Honest, that just means procreation primary, but we've now just redefined what honest is. It's love primary. The church, okay, let's keep going. But to those who consider this matter diligently, it will indeed be evident that this endurance enhances man's dignity and confers benefits on human society. And I wrote, virtuous, complete continence is the only regulation. Yeah, so they're basically trying to say, if you use NFP, it enhances man's dignity and confers benefits on human society. Oh, brother. Value of self-discipline. The right and lawful ordering of births. What is the lawful ordering of births? What is the right and lawful ordering? Demands, first of all, that the spouses fully recognize the value and true blessings of family life. This gets really weird here. The lawful ordering of birth is the hierarchy of ends, which they have smashed to bits. Okay, so there's no more lawful ordering. Therefore, the new ordering is personalistic norm number one. They acquire complete Okay, if you're going to do a lawful and right ordering of birth, you have to fully recognize the true blessings of family life. You have to have complete mastery over them. You have to have complete mastery over yourself and your emotions. This is why all these marriages are invalid. Let me turn the heat back on. Because nobody has complete mastery over themselves or their emotions. There can be no doubt at all that the need for self-denial, only that the expression of love essential to married life conform to right order. Love is not essential to married life, but now it is. And Lucy is saying here that Charlie Brown's not conforming to right order, so she's going to take matters into her own hands. This is especially clear in the practice of periodic continence, which is that's a euphemism. That's a misnomer. It's periodic incontinence. That's all it is. I'm surprised they even say this, periodic continence. Everyone who's not engaging in the conjugal act 24/7, 365 practices periodic continence, okay? Self-discipline of this kind is a shining witness. So this is more gaslighting. This is more propaganda. Self-discipline of this kind is a shining witness to the chastity of husband and wife, and far from being a hindrance to their love in one another, transforms it by giving it a more truly human character. More truly human character. So if love is number one, whatever serves love wins. So Lucy she's serving love here. This is giving it a more truly human character. And this self-discipline does demand that they persevere in their purpose and efforts, whatever that is, and it has at the same time the salutary effect of enabling husband and wife to develop their personalities and to enrich with spiritual blessings. There's a heck of a lot of ways to develop your personality than trying to use the conjugal act to decrease and not multiply. For it brings to family life abundant fruits of so this is all propaganda. They're saying all this NFP brings to family life abundant fruits of tranquility and peace. Lots of tranquility and peace going on here. Can't you see it? Can you feel it? It helps in solving difficulties of other kinds. This is such propaganda. It fosters, all they're saying is this is what all this selfless, love-based NFP does. Got it? You could apply the same propaganda to contraception. It helps in solving difficulties. It fosters in husband and wife thoughtfulness and loving consideration of one another. Yeah, if I don't want to have babies, use contraception. It's thoughtful and loving. It helps them to repel inordinate self-love. You just want to have a bunch of kids, but that's inordinate self-love. So we're going to not do that, okay? I'm going to force the family planning on you, which is the opposite of charity, which reminds me, you've heard NFP must be mutual because of 1 Corinthians 7:4. The body of the husband belongs to the wife and vice versa. Therefore, NFP must be mutual. But as you can see, Lucy says it doesn't have to be mutual. That's because there's a contrary right now. And that contrary right is the right to love, the right to unity, the right to interpersonal relationship. So NFP no longer needs to be mutual because there is no more marital debt. Because marital debt says there's more to the the new order is there's more to the conjugal life than just biology. So NFP no longer needs to be mutual. You cannot say we must have mutual NFP per the law, but the law says there's no marital debt because that's just one-sided. That's just biology. This is why it doesn't make sense. NFP falls apart under scrutiny. Hold on. It helps them to repel inordinate self-love, which is the opposite of charity. It arouses in them a consciousness of their responsibilities. Oh, does it now? Responsibility is taking care of the babies. But now they're saying, no, my responsibility is to love. And finally, it confers on a parent a deeper and more effective influence in the education of their children. You mean the ones that they wanted? What about the ones who got there? Oh, you were a mistake. We didn't really want you. That's not going to be very cool for the way the kids think. My parents did contraception and or NFP. Therefore, we were not the priority. We were an afterthought. We were something we weren't trying to be. We were trying to be avoided, but we happened. Maybe my brother was being avoided. Maybe I was the one being avoided. My parents didn't want me. Bad deal for kids. As their children grow up and start thinking things through a little bit, they developed a right sense of values and achieve a serene and harmonious use of their mental and physical powers. Anything else? Do they get straight A's? Do they become super duper crazy good or what? This is just a pile of propaganda saying if you self-sacrifice, okay, all these great things happen. No, you're violating nature and all these great things don't happen. It's like the opposite. That's why there's tons of people who actually speak up and say NFP is trash for the relationship because it focuses on what you can get rather than the purpose, which is the baby, okay? It turns it in on itself, which is the same thing that contraception does. It's the same thing that NFP does, but it's all propagandized because she doesn't want to have the kids. She doesn't. God says, "I will increase your conceptions," and she says, "No, you're not going to do that." Violation of nature. Everything, therefore, modern means of social communication arouses men's baser passions, as well as every obscenity in the written word, and every form of indecency on the stage and screen should be condemned publicly and unanimously by all those who have the heart to advance civilization and safeguarding the outstanding values of the human spirit. Pretty much sounds good. Get rid of indecency, but the outstanding values of the human spirit, what about the outstanding values of God? Like it's been said, enough of man's rights, what about the rights of God? Human spirit, dude. We got it. So Charlie Brown is shooting for the values of nature, and Lucy's like, hey, we want the values of the human spirit. Okay. The number 12, the family is the primary unit of the state. All right. Do not tolerate any legislation. They're talking to priests, I think. Do not tolerate any legislation which would introduce the family those practices which are opposed to the natural law of God. Okay, that's right. For there are other ways by which the government can and should solve the population problem. That is to say, by enacting laws which will assist families by and educating the people wisely so that the moral law and the freedom of the citizens are both safeguarded. Whatever. You and your moral law. Like we said, your kids now belong to the state because if marriage is love, it has no legal definition. So the church says, the bishop says, this is not my gig. I don't have anything to do with your if Lucy pulls the football away, I cannot judge that. That's between her and God. And if she wants to use the state to enforce that, there's nothing we can do. This is why NFP has wrecked everything. I'm going to put a meme up just a second. Okay, so check this out. Yeah. Marriage is the right to, okay, and then they used to call it in 1917 the right to acts all by themselves, independent, acts which are of themselves suitable for the generation of children. That's what marriage used to be, the right to acts all by themselves, suitable for the generation of children. But now marriage is the right to acts good for the spouses and suitable for the generation of children. So you have to have good of the spouses in here, which is exactly why Lucy is saying it's not this act, Charlie Brown, that you're doing is not good according to my subjectivity. So therefore, you're not capable of marriage, and it's not a sin if I break this off because there's no more. You cannot define the rights of marriage because it's all, the rights are in my head. Okay, hang on. Let's go back. Let's finish up. Here we go. Hold phone. Let's share this screen tab instead. Okay. Let's see what else we got. No statement of this. No seeking true solutions. No statement of the problem. I'm trying to heat up. No statement of the problem and solution, and no solution is acceptable which does violence to man's essential dignity. Wow. No statement of the problem and no solution is acceptable which does violence to man's essential dignity. Okay? So if Charlie Brown wants to kick the football but is not like really treating Lucy perfect, she says you're violating my essential dignity. Those who propose such solutions base them on an utterly materialistic conception of man in his life. They're trying to say that marriage is more than biology. That's what they're saying. It's not just material. I think, ironically, though, they're reducing it to materialistic when you say that you can, for just cause, you can violate nature. So it's not nature anymore. Okay. The only possible solution to this question is one which envisions social and economic progress and blah, 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 which respects and promotes the true human values. What are true human values? How about the values of God? Okay, aka natural law. No, true human values. So Lucy's saying, I have my value here that this is cool and this is natural. To take the football away, is those are my true human values. Are you going to judge me? You can't judge me. I'm the only one who knows this stuff. See? That's why divorce isn't a sin. to scientists. But wait, there's more. Number 24, our next appeal is to men of science. These can considerably advance the welfare of marriage. Whoa, science can advance the welfare of marriage. Did you know that? And family, and also peace of conscience. Science, whoa, help our conscience. We're not at peace here. In other words, we don't want to have kids, but we're feeling guilty. So bring in the science, okay? That way we can thwart, increase, and multiply and ease our conscience. How? Because our new moral order is love wins. If by pooling their efforts they strive to elucidate more thoroughly the conditions favorable to a proper regulation of births. They're trying to say, hey, ramp up the NFP knowledge so we can use it more, because we need to advance the welfare of marriage with more NFP. You know what? If you break a leg or something and you get serious scientific advancements and leg reconstruction, that's going to help out, okay? But that doesn't violate nature to fix somebody's leg. But it does violate nature to fix somebody's interpersonal relationship if to do so means use the conjugal act to decrease and not multiply. Anyway, this comes from Gaudium 52. It is supremely desirable, then, that this was also the mind of Pius XII, that medical science should be the study of natural rhythms, succeeded in determining a sufficiently secure basis for the chaste limitation of offspring. Woohoo! Oh, brother. There can be no contradiction between the two divine laws, which were that which governs the transmitting of life and that which governs the fostering of marital love. That's more Gaudium et Spes crazy, okay? The two divine laws. So this is all this stuff about unity and procreation. There are not two divine laws. There's one. The divine law is procreation, primary and independent, in and of itself, like we talked about, right? Acts which are of themselves, okay? So now that's one divine law. Acts of themselves suitable for generation. Now you have acts for the good and for generation. All right. Number 25, to Christian couples. For the Lord has entrusted them to the task of making visible to men and women the holiness and joy of the law, which united inseparably their love for one another and the cooperation they give God's love, who is the author of human life. More propaganda. There's some law that you can't separate love from one another and the cooperation they give to God's love. This is like a super fancy, goofy way of saying it is illicit to have a conjugal act without love. That's what they're saying. That is totally new and crazy. And it says that marriage is not bound by nature. This is why we only talk about just causes and we can't say natural law regarding NFP, because it doesn't hold water. You're saying that it's nature for Lucy to feel interpersonal, and if she doesn't feel interpersonal, she can withdraw from the marital debt. And it's all legal. So the Bible, we're trashing that part. What did I write here? Law says it is illegal to have no love or no cooperation. No, it doesn't. That's correct. The law is nature, independent procreation. That's it. Now they're saying it's a new law. What else do we got? Abundantly bestowed in the sacrament of penance. In this way, for sure, they will be able to reach that perfection of married life. What? Whoa. Okay. They're basically saying that all this love, you're going to reach the perfection of married life. That strengthening union and all that stuff. No such thing. This is a great mystery, and I mean as a reference to Christ and Church. However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. I got to find it. I think it's, oh yeah. I think we already talked about that in Genesis 3:16. It says the wife must, or no, I know. It's Ephesians 5. Here, let's find it just a second. This is hilarious. I just Googled, let the wife fear her husband. And what did I get? Help is available. See? This is the problem. The Bible is hate speech, dude. But you got to go to the right translation. So we'll go to, I go to Bible Hub all the time, but look at, you got to go to the correct, you got to go to Douay Rheims. If you go to the English Standard Version or whatever, they don't say it right. Douay Rheims, where are we? Hello? Excuse me. Let's find it real quick. Right here. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular love his wife as himself, and let the wife fear her husband. Ephesians 5:33. Okay, what does Humane Vitae say? Does it say let the wife fear her husband? No. Let the wife see that she respects her husband. Whoops, hang on a second. Hang on, just haven't said. Yeah. It says, let the wife see that she respect her husband. So up to this time, the church in her encyclicals always used the Douay Rheims because that's the real Bible, but not anymore. We've got to tweak that. Let the wife fear her husband, and that won't fly for mutual love. That's why they won't say that. But this is basically good, so that, love your wife and everything, but she has to fear her husband, which means he's in charge. Okay. Married couples themselves, by the leadership they offer, will become apostles to other married couples. They're trying to spread, yeah. So this is all part of the vision. We need the number of NFP teachers to just flourish, and we have to get this going, because if we don't have an army of people spreading NFP, it will never get going because everyone, it's fake. We've got to start the propaganda war going. Okay. To priests, I appeal to you, brethren, by the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you agree that there will be no dissension among you, but that you be united in the same mind and the same judgment. Yep. They're trying to stamp out dissension, of course. I put here that there's a blog, you can click on it right here in the comments. There's the Seattle bishop and the Minnesota bishop back in the 30s and 40s condemned NFP. So there's no unity about this, and it's not infallible either, just because there's plenty of examples of people in history who have opposed this in the church. Okay, what else do we got? Okay, a great work, number 31. For man cannot attain that true happiness for which he yearns with all his strength and spirit unless he keeps the laws which the Most High God has engraved in his very nature. That's right. These laws must be widely and lovingly observed. Okay, the laws must be wisely and lovingly deserved. So if they're not lovingly deserved, they're not wisely. You don't have to lovingly observe the law. If it's just observed wisely, that's included, okay? But they keep going to this dual nature, dual law, dual purpose, dual everything. So the nature has to be love and wisdom. Oh, boy, we got to the bottom of it. What else is there? We wrote what I wrote here. This encyclical talks... Okay, this is from an article from American Magazine, the Jesuit Liberal one. And this lady is talking about Humanae Vitae, okay? Let's go over a little bit. And she says, this encyclical talks about sexual intimacy not as a right or a duty, nor as permissible or tolerable as theologians and bishops had in earlier days. Okay, yes, that's correct. That's because the marital debt is Catholic teaching. So, hang on a sec. Someone's calling. Just a minute. Okay, so yeah, like we were saying, used to have the marital debt. It is a right, or a duty, and the encyclical talks about the theologians and bishops in earlier days. Okay, so this is like we said, the lady from American Magazine. Nor does the document nor does Humanae Vitae immediately turn to procreation as the primary end of marriage, as it did in Casti Connubii. Hello? Yes. People are admitting the obvious here because they're not Catholic, really. Rather, it turns to married love, which derives its nature and nobility from God, who is love. Okay? I have my students study how the encyclical specifically describes this. Remember, I said you have to have 4 goods of marriage in order to justify NFP? Well, here it is. Here are the 4 goods: friendship, faithful, exclusive, and fecund. So marriage by nature used to just be babies, no exclusivity. Wait a minute. Faithful, friendship, wait a minute. Permanence. I guess when they're saying faithful, there must be permanent. And friendship. So yeah, now we have to have friendship as far as nature goes. I think that St. Thomas Aquinas used to call faith, he used to call that permanence. Or no, that's sacrament. At any rate, the key thing is that she included friendship in here as part of the new law. And then the rest is that's just the footnotes. Let me see if there's anything else I want. No, I guess that's a wrap. We finally got to the end. Listen, you just go follow your heart there on the comments section, and be sure to give me a like, please, for the algorithm, like I said. We're going to finish off letting Lucy explain to Charlie Brown the way this new order really gets done.
Relax here a while, Charlie Brown. We'll solve this problem together. The way I see it, your problem is one of emotions. When you have emotional problems, it is usually because you have no outlets. You need emotional outlets.
I need emotional outlets. What kind of emotional outlets would you suggest?
This football is a perfect answer. There's no better emotional outlet than kicking a football. To sum it all up in one phrase, Charlie Brown, you could kick away your faults.
Boy, you must think I'm stupid. You just want to hold that football and have me come running up to kick at it so you can pull it away and see me fall flat on my back!
The cure is up to you, Charlie Brown. Do you want to kick the habit, or don't you? Perhaps you'd rather have another viewing session of all your faults on those slides?
All right. I'll try it. No more slides.
You won't be disappointed, Charlie Brown. This time, I have a little extra surprise as a bonus.
Why, oh why do I let her do this to me? Why? Maybe she's right. After all, if you can't trust your own psychiatrist, who can you trust? This time I'm really going to kick it. I'm going to kick the habit. This is the end of all my faults.
And now for the surprise. Would you like to see how that looked on instant replay? Hum-de-dum.
Instant replay?
Dee-doo, hum-hum-hum. Dee-dum, hum-dee-dum. Here you are, Charlie Brown. Now I'm going to run through this at slow motion. I think we must carefully analyze your every move, your every expression. Dee-la-da. Dee-dee. See how erratic your movements are? Look at your face! Those bad personality traits we spoke about stand out clearly. Now, see the look of determination on your face? All sham, Charlie Brown. A failure face if I ever saw one. In turn, see how benign and composed my face is, Charlie Brown? And your clumsiness, Charlie Brown. Shall we run through it once more at normal speed?
No, I don't think so.